Welcome to the Word for Life podcast, a daily devotional covering the entire Bible from Genesis to Revelation.
In chapter 20, we read about Abraham. Once again, Abraham makes a big mistake. He lies and makes Sarah also lie to the king of the Philistines named Abimelech. Both of them tell that king that they are just a brother and a sister and not a husband and wife. And therefore, Abimelech just takes Sarah to his palace. But God, in His mercy, intervenes. God comes to Abimelech in a dream and threatens him. God even punishes Abimelech's wife and women and stops them from having children. You see, for the second time, Abraham lost his wife Sarah. For the second time, Abraham does not care about the promise that God said to him. Through Sarah, you will have a son. That was God's promise. But Abraham had lost his wife to a foreign king. But yet again, God rescued Sarah. This only tells us that without God, Abraham would have not got back Sarah, and therefore the promised son Isaac would not have been born. Friends, God is always faithful and He rescues us. But this does not mean we can also lie and do ungodly things and somehow God will rescue us or bail us out. You see, we cannot test God with our sinful actions. We cannot ask God to rescue us after intentionally doing wrong things. Though God is faithful, merciful, and He helps us, we must not take God for granted. However, if there is something we have messed up in our life, we can still ask God for His mercy and grace. We can humble ourselves and ask God to rescue us from that situation. And just like God helped Abraham and Sarah, He will certainly help us. He did it for Abraham, and He will do it for you as well. Now, see the awesome grace of God in the life of Abraham and Sarah in the next chapter in Genesis 21. The narrator describes it so well in verse 1 and 2. The text reads, Now the Lord was gracious to Sarah as He had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what He had promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age at the very time God had promised him. Friends, in spite of all the mistakes and all the unfaithfulness and all the foolishness, God still brought about Isaac in the line of Abraham and Sarah. Our God fulfills what He promises, and He's always on time. Not only that, God also settled the issue of Ishmael once for all. You may remember that 16 years ago, Abraham and Sarah made a very foolish mistake. They thought back then that Hagar is the way to get a child, but it misfired very badly. Now, after 16 years, the problem of Ishmael comes back again, and Abraham is not able to do anything about it. Ishmael makes fun of the little Isaac, and Sarah tells Abraham to send away Hagar and her son Ishmael. Yet again, God rescues Abraham in this problem. He commands Abraham to send Ishmael and Hagar away. Though it is very painful for Abraham, he obeys God and sends Hagar away. And then in the wilderness, God finds Hagar and rescues her and blesses Ishmael also. Friends, this is the message. If you have messed up your life and the consequences are threatening you, you can ask God what He wants you to do. And whatever instruction He gives you, just do it. God will certainly solve your problem. There was another problem that God solved for Abraham in chapter 21. King Abimelech who earlier took away Sarah, now surprisingly comes to meet Abraham. For what? To make a peace treaty with him. How was that possible? In Genesis 21:22, we read, At that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, said to Abraham, God is with you in everything you do. In other words, God brought Abimelech to Abraham and forced him to make a peace treaty with Abraham. Now, in the end, Abraham had peace. The impossible happened. Both Abraham and Abimelech made a peace treaty among themselves. How did that happen? God solved his problem. Genesis 21:33 to 34 says, Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there he called on the name of the Lord, the eternal God. And Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines for a long time. There was peacelessness between Abraham and Abimelech, but God solved that also for him. My friends, our God is a God who solves our problems, even when we do foolish things, and even when consequences come after us, even when there is no peace between us and somebody else. When we look up to Him, He will definitely come and solve our problems.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow for the next episode of the Word for Life podcast.